The moving truck's engine growled to a stop, its brakes squealing like a wounded animal as it parked in front of my new lakefront house. I stepped out, boots crunching on the gravel, the air thick with the scent of pine and fresh water. My heart thumped with a mix of exhaustion and hope this was it. My fresh start after years of grinding in the city. The sun glinted off the lake, a shimmering promise of peace. But before I could even grab the first box, a shrill voice sliced through the quiet like a knife through butter. You don't belong here. I turned, squinting against the late afternoon glare. There she was, Karen. She stood on the edge of my property line, arms crossed, her bleach blonde bob as stiff as her posture. Her lips were pursed so tight they looked like they'd been stitched shut, and her eyes burned with the kind of righteous fury only a suburban HOA president could muster. I hadn't even unpacked a single dish, and already, she was coming for me. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Do I know you?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though my pulse ticked up. The moving guys froze, their hands hovering over boxes, sensing the storm brewing. "This is my neighborhood," she snapped, jabbing a manicured finger toward me. "And I know you didn't get HOA approval to move in. I'm calling the police." Her phone was already in her hand, her thumb hovering over the screen like a guillotine blade. I took a breath, the kind that feels like you're swallowing glass. This was my dream house, 2 years of savings, late nights at the office, and a divorce that left me raw. I wasn't about to let some power-tripping busybody ruin it. "Ma'am, I bought this place fair and square. The paperwork's done. Maybe check your records before you make that call." Her eyes narrowed, and she let out a huff that sounded like a teakettle hitting a boil. "We'll see about that," she hissed, dialing 911 right there in my driveway. The audacity of it hit me like a slap. I could hear the dispatcher's voice crackling through her phone, and my stomach churned not from fear, but from the sheer injustice of it. I'd barely set foot in my new life, and already, I was being branded an intruder. The police arrived 10 minutes later, 2 officers with bored expressions and coffee breath. Karen was in her element, gesturing wildly, her voice climbing octaves as she spun a tale of me being some shady outsider who'd snuck into her pristine gated community. I stood there, arms crossed, the lake breeze cool against my neck, and explained my side, the deed, the closing, the realtor's handshake. The officers glanced at each other, then at Karen, who was practically vibrating with indignation. "Ma'am," one of them said, his voice flat as the lake's surface, "this man's paperwork checks out. There's no issue here." Karen's face went red, then purple, like a bruise ripening in real time. She sputtered, but the officers were already heading back to their cruiser. I thought that'd be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a lawnmower roaring outside my window. It was 6 a.m. I stumbled to the porch, rubbing sleep from my eyes, and there was Karen, directing a landscaping crew to trim my hedges. Not hers, mine. The smell of cut grass mixed with gasoline fumes, and I felt my blood pressure spike. She caught my eye and smirked, like she'd won some invisible war. That's when I knew this wasn't about a misunderstanding. This was personal. Over the next week, it got worse. Karen left passive-aggressive notes taped to my mailbox. "Your trash cans are an eyesore. Fix it." She complained to the HOA about my car being too loud. "It's a hybrid. For God's sake." She even rallied a few neighbors to glare at me during my evening jogs, their whispers trailing me like mosquitoes. The lake, my supposed sanctuary, started to feel like a prison. But then I met Rosa. She was a surprise, a spark in the middle of this mess. I ran into her at the community dock, where she was fishing with a beat-up rod and a bucket of bait. Her laugh was warm, like honey dripping slow, and her eyes crinkled with a kindness that felt rare in this place. She was maybe 60, with silver streaks in her hair and hands that looked like they'd worked hard her whole life. "You're the new guy Karen's got a vendetta against," she said, casting her line into the water with a soft plop. The lake sparkled under the morning sun, and I could smell the damp earth mixing with her faint perfume, something floral. Like jasmine. Yeah. I sighed, sitting on the dock's edge, the wood creaking under me. She's making my life hell. Called the cops on day one. Rosa chuckled. But there was an edge to it. That's Karen. She's been running this HOA like her personal fiefdom for years. Thinks she owns the lakefront, too. She paused, reeling in her line, the water rippling softly. But she's not invincible. You just need to know where to look. That's when Rosa dropped the bombshell. Karen had been skimming HOA funds. Not a lot, but enough. $50 here, $100 there. Funneled into landscaping projects that never materialized. Rosa had been keeping tabs, quiet as a shadow, collecting receipts and emails. She'd been waiting for someone to challenge Karen's reign. Someone like me. My heart raced. Not just from anger but from possibility. This wasn't just about my driveway showdown anymore. This was about justice. About tearing down a petty tyrant who thought she could bully her way through life. I spent the next few nights poring over Rosa's evidence. The glow of my laptop casting sharp shadows across my living room. The smell of coffee hung heavy as I cross-referenced budgets, invoices, and bank statements. Karen had been sloppy, thinking no one would notice. But I noticed, and I wasn't going to let it slide. The HOA meeting was set for Friday, and I could feel the tension building like a storm rolling in. The community center smelled of stale donuts and cheap air freshener. The kind that makes your nose itch. Neighbors shuffled in, their murmurs filling the room like static. Karen sat at the front, her usual throne, her smile as plastic as the nameplate in front of her. I stood in the back, clutching Rosa's folder, my palms sweaty, my heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing the same word, justice. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't hesitate. I laid it all out, every misappropriated dollar, every fudged receipt, every lie Karen had told to keep her grip on this neighborhood. The room went silent, the kind of quiet that feels like the world holding its breath. Then came the gasps, the whispers, the slow turn of heads toward Karen, her face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You can't prove any of this, she shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. But I could. And I did. The evidence was ironclad, and the board members' faces hardened as they flipped through the pages. By the end of the night, Karen was stripped of her HOA presidency. But I wasn't done. The lakefront was the heart of this community. A shared space Karen had gatekept for years, claiming it needed protection from people like me. I pushed for an audit of the HOA's lakefront policies, and what we found was a goldmine of over-recruals she'd invented to control access. Fees she'd pocketed for maintenance. The board voted unanimously to dissolve her pet regulations. And then, the coup de grace. They barred her from ever holding an HOA position again, effectively locking her out of her own lakefront kingdom. As the meeting adjourned, I stepped outside, the night air cool against my skin. The lake stretched out before me, its surface a mirror of stars, the soft lapping of water like a heartbeat. Rosa joined me, her fishing rod slung over her shoulder. You did good, kid, she said, her voice soft but proud. I exhaled, a long, shaky breath, feeling the weight of the past weeks lift. Karen moved out a month later. Her house sold to a young couple with a kid who loved splashing in the lake. I saw her one last time, loading boxes into a U-Haul, her face pinched and bitter. She didn't look at me, but I didn't need her to. The lake was free now, open to everyone, not just her chosen few. And every time I walked down to the water, the breeze carrying the scent of pine and possibility, I'm reminded that sometimes, standing up to a bully doesn't just win you a fight, it wins you a home.